Let's talk about Japanese cars. Toyota, Honda, Nissan. For decades, they were everywhere in America. Reliable, affordable, and part of daily life. You probably learned to drive in a Civic or knew someone with a Camry. These brands weren't just foreign imports. They built factories, created jobs, and became part of American communities. That's why, in 2025, their sudden total withdrawal from the US market was so shocking. Dealerships emptied overnight. Factories went silent. The impact was immediate and massive. It wasn't a pause or a negotiation, it was a full exit. The disbelief was palpable. Billions had been invested in US plants, and these companies were deeply rooted in local economies. But the engines stopped, and they didn't start again. This wasn't a rash decision. It was the result of years of mounting pressure, a crisis that finally broke the system. The story is about politics, economics, and the real-world fallout of policies that sound simple, but have devastating effects. To understand how an entire industry vanished, we need to talk about tariffs. Tariffs may sound dull, but in this case, they were a lit fuse. The explosion? It changed the American automotive landscape forever. What happened wasn't just a business decision, it was an economic earthquake. And it all started with a single, powerful policy shift. Let's see how it unfolded. Tariffs. Think of them as taxes countries use to fight economic battles. The idea is simple. Make imported goods more expensive so people buy local instead. For example, if a foreign car is cheaper, a tariff can bump up its price, making domestic cars more appealing. But here's the catch. Modern manufacturing is global. American cars use parts from all over the world. When tariffs hit, it's not just finished cars, they hit every imported part from engines to electronics. That means American factories pay more for the parts they need, driving up costs for everyone. And other countries retaliate, slapping tariffs on American goods in return. What starts as a simple tax quickly spirals into a trade war, hurting businesses and consumers on both sides. In today's world, almost nothing is made entirely in one country. Your American car might have a Japanese engine, a Mexican transmission, and German electronics. Tariffs are a blunt instrument in a world built on precision and cooperation. When the US imposed sweeping tariffs in 2025, it didn't just target foreign companies, it disrupted the entire supply chain. The result? Factories stalled, costs soared, and the industry began to unravel. What was meant to protect American jobs ended up threatening them. The lesson: in a global economy, economic warfare rarely has clear winners, and the collateral damage can be enormous. Tariffs to protect US car makers weren't new. In the 1980s, they led Japanese companies to build factories in America, creating jobs and blending global expertise with local labor. But in 2024, the new tariffs were harsher. 25% on most imported auto parts, 10% on finished vehicles, with almost no exceptions. This policy ignored how cars are actually made, with thousands of parts from dozens of countries. Japanese automakers in the US relied on high-tech components from Asia, parts that couldn't be sourced locally overnight. The tariffs didn't distinguish between a finished car and a tiny essential microchip. Suddenly, building cars in America became more expensive than importing them. The policy punished companies already investing in US jobs and factories. The result, a system designed to protect American industry, ended up crippling it. The misunderstanding of modern manufacturing turned protectionism into self-sabotage. The damage was swift and severe, and the consequences rippled far beyond the factory floor. But they build cars here. Why did tariffs matter? It's a fair question, but it misses the reality of global manufacturing. US plants were the final step in a long supply chain. 30 to 40% of each car's value came from imported high-tech parts. Engines, transmissions, electronics. These weren't easily replaced with American alternatives. The 25% tariff hit all of them, instantly raising production costs. Companies tried to absorb the blow, but the losses were unsustainable. Raising prices made their cars uncompetitive. Selling at a loss was impossible. Ironically, it became cheaper to build cars in Japan and pay the old tariffs than to keep US factories running. The factories meant to shield them from trade wars became liabilities. The numbers didn't lie. Staying meant financial ruin. The only option left was to leave. Losing a major automaker isn't like losing a shop, it's an economic shockwave. Towns like Georgetown, Kentucky, and Smyrna, Tennessee, were built around these factories. The payroll funded schools, local businesses, and public services. When the factories closed, thousands lost good jobs overnight. For every assembly line job lost, several more disappeared in the local economy. Suppliers, truck drivers, restaurants, and shops. Main streets emptied, property values fell, and public services suffered, schools faced cuts, and community programs lost funding. The social fabric unraveled as families moved away in search of work. What was once a thriving community became a cautionary tale. The cost wasn't just economic, it was deeply human. The loss went beyond jobs and factories. Japanese automakers drove innovation in America. They invested in R&D, pioneered hybrid and electric technology, and pushed U.S. companies to compete. Their research centers employed thousands of American engineers and scientists. Partnerships with universities fueled breakthroughs and kept the U.S. at the cutting edge. Their exit created a vacuum, less competition, less innovation, and a risk of stagnation. The Toyota production system and other techniques raised standards across industries. By forcing them out, America lost not just products but expertise and progress. The drive to build better, cleaner, safer cars slowed. The loss was about more than vehicles, it was about losing the future. The consequences will be felt for years. The fallout spread far beyond factories and car buyers. Japanese automakers were major advertisers, supporting media, sports, and local events. Their exit left a hole in TV, radio, and online revenue, causing more job losses. Motorsports suffered as sponsorships vanished, threatening entire racing series and careers. These companies also funded charities, STEM programs, and community initiatives. When they left, so did vital support for schools, food banks, and youth sports. The lesson is clear: in a global economy, every action has far-reaching consequences. A policy meant to protect jobs destroyed them instead. America lost not just cars, but innovation, community, and opportunity. Breaking things is easy, rebuilding is much harder.